Welcome, listener. You are about to embark on a journey through two of the most influential books on financial success and prosperity. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. Though written decades apart, their wisdom converges on one truth. Wealth is not about luck, but about learning, discipline, and choice. What if the exact blueprint for unlimited wealth has been hiding in plain sight for nearly a century or even thousands of years, and the only thing keeping you from it is the way you are thinking right now? You are about to experience a fusion of the two most powerful financial masterpieces ever written. Over the course of this summary, we aren't just going to read concepts to you. We are going to completely rewire how you interact with money. Before we dive into Chapter 1, let's set the stage. We are beginning our journey with the ultimate manual on the psychology of success, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Hill spent 20 years studying over 500 of the wealthiest people of his time, titans like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, to uncover one singular truth. He discovered that wealth does not begin in your bank account. It begins in your mind. It is driven by a burning, obsessive desire. So, right now, wherever you are listening to this, whether you are driving, walking, or sitting at your desk, I want you to pause and ask yourself a question. Be totally honest. What is your definite major purpose? If I were to hand you a blank check right now, do you know the exact amount you would write on it? More importantly, do you know exactly what you are willing to give in return to get it? Think about that specific number. Picture it. Lock it in your mind, because over the first half of this audiobook, we are going to use Hill's 13 steps to turn that invisible thought into physical reality. But having the right mindset is only half the battle. Once you attract the wealth, how do you keep it? How do you multiply it? That is where we will shift gears into our second masterpiece, The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. We will leave the modern age and travel back thousands of years to the wealthiest city of the ancient world. The Babylonians didn't have Wall Street or compound interest calculators, but they understood the unbreakable laws of gold better than most people do today. Here is your second challenge before we begin. Do you pay yourself first? Think about your last paycheck. Out of every $10 you earned, was $1 strictly yours to keep, to build your future? Or did it all go to the grocer, the landlord, and the credit card company? The Babylonians knew that if you do not keep a tenth of what you earn, you are simply working to pay everyone else. Together, these books form a bridge between past and present. One teaches through modern financial realities, the other through timeless storytelling. Both remind us that riches are not built overnight, but through consistent habits, wise decisions, and the courage to think differently. As you listen, imagine yourself standing at a crossroads. One path paved with modern strategies, the other with ancient wisdom. Both lead to the same destination, financial freedom and a life of abundance. So, open your mind, lean in, and let these words guide you. Whether you seek to escape debt, grow your investments, or simply master the art of money, the journey begins here. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. We can only accomplish our aims in life if we are driven by a burning desire. A great number of us wish for wealth and financial independence, but wishing alone isn't going to help us achieve our goals. If we want to get rich and realize our dreams, we need to recognize a burning desire within us. For instance, even after more than 10,000 failed experiments, Thomas Edison could not be shaken from his goal of inventing an electric light source. He was plain and simple, driven by the desire to make his dream come true. And after years of hard work, he did just that when he invented the light bulb. Writer Fannie Hurst had a similar experience. She had to suffer over 36 rejections before a single one of her short stories was published in a newspaper. From then on, her career as a successful novelist and playwright took off. Her burning desire had proven stronger than the frustration she felt about being rejected, and she ultimately met with success. So it's essential for those of us who want to be successful to examine our own personal attitude towards setting our goals and dreams. How do we feel about our goals and dreams? Are they only castles in the sky? Or is our burning desire strong enough to make them come true one day? Goal setting and detailed planning are the basis of every achievement. Every success story begins with people who know what they want to achieve. So before you begin chasing after any old dream, you should start by defining your own personal goal as precisely as you can. For example, if you want to get rich, you should decide precisely how much money you want to make. Additionally, you must have a clear understanding of when you want to achieve your goal and what you're prepared to invest to accomplish it. Because setting a specific goal is pointless if it's floating in some indeterminate future where you'll only ever be able to pursue it half-heartedly. It's also important to come up with a plan that outlines every step you'll need to take until the realization of your goal. And once you have a plan, get cracking. Don't waste another minute. The following method comes in handy if you want to make sure that your desire for success is anchored deeply enough in your own thoughts and actions. First, write down your goal and your detailed plan for achieving it. Then, read it aloud twice every day, once in the morning after you get up and once every night before going to bed. Follow these recommendations and it'll make it a lot easier for you to get rich or make any other dream come true. Successful people have an unwavering faith in themselves. Having an unwavering faith in yourself is a way of making sure that you can and will achieve your goals. You can only achieve success if it's based on self-confidence and an unwavering faith in yourself. No wealth has ever been acquired, no faraway continents ever discovered, nothing ever invented without this faith as its basis. One paradigmatic example of the power of faith was Mahatma Gandhi. Even without access to the typical instruments of power, like money or the military, he managed to defy British colonial power and lead his country to freedom. The only backing he had was his unbending belief that he could exercise an influence so great upon his fellow countrymen that they would stand up for their common goals. Our own faith in ourselves has an enormous influence on our self-image and way of life. It can, in the truest sense of the word, help us move mountains. By using autosuggestion, our subconscious can influence our behavior. Unwavering faith in yourself is not necessarily something you're born with or that falls from the sky. Anybody can develop it, bit by bit, through autosuggestion. Autosuggestion describes a way of influencing yourself by thinking very specific and purposeful thoughts or ideas. You can use it to convey certain commands or positive goals to your own subconsciousness and, in doing so, to increase your own belief in yourself. In general, autosuggestion consists of persuading yourself that you can reach your goals. Your thoughts can be transformed into reality, and you must go your own way with confidence. The more you use autosuggestion, the likelier it is that it will help you achieve success. If you impress your desires and goals in your unconsciousness, it will steer all your thoughts and actions towards making them come true. Knowledge is power, but it doesn't have to be what you learned in school. Knowledge can make it a lot easier to achieve your aims in life. All you have to do is take a few basic points into consideration. First of all, you need to take the traditional meaning of knowledge and education and throw it out the window. Because being knowledgeable or well-educated isn't limited to having a high school diploma or university degree. Uneducated people can also know a heck of a lot, as Henry Ford clearly demonstrated. Although he didn't make it to high school, it didn't stop him from establishing an industrial empire and making millions. If you want to be successful, you don't need to stuff your head with too many facts. It is far more important to acquire the right experiences and knowledge, use your own strengths, and fully exploit your own potential. The most important basis is a willingness to continue learning throughout your life. Getting complacent is your worst enemy. Instead, you must always be ready to actively and pointedly expand your own knowledge. There are many different ways to achieve this: by going to university, attending evening courses, or acquiring practical experiences. Equally useful is the ability to know where you can find the knowledge you need, because you don't need to know everything yourself. Instead, you need to know who you can ask if you need to know something. It's usually more practical and productive to be surrounded by a network of experts who share their specialized knowledge than to learn it all yourself. The workshop of the imagination, where we can turn our dreams into reality. Each and every success story begins with an idea, and behind each and every idea is the imagination. It is essentially the creative workshop of our minds that transforms our dreams into ideas and our ideas into reality. This imaginative ability has two different forms: the creative imagination and the synthetic imagination. By using our creative imagination, we are able to come up with completely new things. Ingenious composers, visual artists, and writers use this function to create works unlike anything made before. The synthetic imagination, by contrast, rearranges old ideas into new combinations. The developers at Sony, for example, were using that faculty when they decided to further develop the playback device or dictaphone used by journalists, turning it into a portable music player everybody could use. And so the Walkman was born. Creative and synthetic imagination can play off one another in a productive way. Take the story of Asa Candler, who formed the global brand Coca-Cola out of a headache medication about 140 years ago. Although it wasn't Candler himself who came up with the Coca-Cola recipe, he bought it from a pharmacist for $3,000. He developed the ingenious plans and marketing strategies that turned the product into a huge success. If you want to keep your imagination from getting sluggish, you need to challenge and encourage it. And you can achieve that by stimulating it, keeping it active, and training it like a muscle. The more frequently you use it, the more productive and powerful it will become. Knowing your own strengths and weaknesses increases your chances of professional success. One important building block for professional success is an awareness of your own strengths and weaknesses. In other words, being self-aware. Since things like having vague goals, lacking ambition, procrastinating, and lacking resolve are common reasons for failure, self-awareness can help to constructively take action against these weaknesses, or at least to balance them out with your strengths. In order to be able to figure out exactly what your strengths and weaknesses are, it's advisable to perform a thorough and honest self-analysis. Don't worry, this doesn't require going to a psychologist. It's more than enough if you go through a checklist of questions, which should include: have I achieved my aim for this year? Was I always friendly, courteous, and cooperative? Did I make all decisions promptly and firmly? Then you should compare your subjective self-analysis with somebody else's objective evaluation of you. This works best when you sit down with a person who knows you really well to openly and honestly discuss your strengths and weaknesses. Positive emotions are the key to a successful life and need to be strengthened. Our subconscious receives and stores sensory stimuli, feelings, and thoughts. It saves everything we've ever experienced, regardless of whether it was positive or negative. But saving information alone isn't all there is to it. Our subconscious is also constantly exercising its influence on our actions. It can shape us positively, endowing us with strength and enterprise, but it can also shape us negatively, misleading us into despondency and pessimism. And so, if we want our subconscious to help us realize our desires and goals, we have to make sure that positive feelings play a leading role in our lives. We must, therefore, feed our subconscious positive things because if we do, it will act as a helpful and constructive guide. But if we allow ourselves to feel too many negative sensations, such as rage, hate, a desire for revenge, or pessimism, the very opposite will occur. That's why you've taken a huge step when in everyday life you're able to, for example, avoid contact with doom-saying windbags and pay no heed to their discouraging remarks. Instead, you should make it a point to increase all positive impulses such as enthusiasm and love. That's the only way you'll end up developing a positive mentality in the long term. Successful people are remarkable for their determination and steadfastness. The analysis of over 25,000 life stories of people who failed to achieve professional success shows that a lack of determination is the main reason for their failure. The analysis of the success stories of multimillionaires revealed, by contrast, that they all had two characteristics in common. They were used to making split-second decisions, and once they made them, they stood firmly behind their decisions. A certain degree of stubbornness, as long as it does not transform into a deaf obstinacy, can even be advantageous. Henry Ford, in particular, was known to stick to his decisions for a long time. For example, many people advised him to replace his famous, but not terribly beautiful Model T with a new model. But he held on to the car for a long time and was thus able to continue bringing in sizable profits with it. Opinions are cheap. Everybody has one, and most people want to dispense them. In order to avoid running into the danger of negative influences and straining your own steadfastness, it makes sense to offer others as few opportunities as possible to express their critical opinions. People who are disheartened in particular should therefore keep their plans and intentions to themselves and not confide in anybody else, except for the members of their hand-picked team or trustworthy outsiders. Only the persistent will succeed. Over the course of any project, regardless of its nature, we are all bound to encounter obstacles and difficulties. In such situations, most of us are too quick to give up our plans and let the project die. But there are a few people who, despite all the obstacles, stick to their original plans and give their dreams space to blossom into reality. Persistence and endurance are key. That means, above all, that we work constantly on the realization of our goals and don't lose sight of them. However, obstinacy and inveteracy should be avoided at all costs. If, say, there's a dire need for a price correction, you also have to be willing to implement it. If you want persistence and endurance to take root in your habits, here are 4 simple yet crucial rules. You must have a concrete goal and develop a burning desire to achieve it. You need a thorough and precise plan to support the implementation of your goals. You may not allow yourself to be influenced by negative and disheartening opinions. You need an intimate, trusting relationship to a person or a group that provides you with support and assistance. Think of these rules as a special exercise program to help you build up your personal endurance and persistence. Achieving great things requires being smart and surrounding yourself with smart people. The bigger the goal, the more complex the planning. The more complex the planning, the more difficult the goal's execution. The more difficult the execution, the more dependent the brains behind the project will be on the creative, intellectual, and moral support of others. This mutual backing works best in the form of a brain trust, a select group of intelligent people. A brain trust is a union of like-minded people which, contrary to a network, which is a more casual cooperation between partners, focuses on defining a common goal, developing competencies, and having a system of checks and balances. The most important principle of a brain trust is its synergistic effect. If two or more people who work well with one another combine their skills, talents, specialist knowledge, experiences, relationships, and all other resources and use them to accomplish the same shared goal, the results will be more than just the sum of its parts. It's a surplus with which you can achieve things you could have never achieved alone. Conclusion. The main message of this book is, wealth in whatever form is seldom the result of luck or coincidence. Far from that, it's almost always the result of different traits and skills that anyone can learn and acquire. This book answers the following questions. How can we find the right goals in life, and how do we translate them into action? We can only accomplish our aims in life if we are driven by a burning desire. Goal setting and detailed planning are the basis of every achievement. Successful people have an unwavering faith in themselves. By using autosuggestion, our subconscious can influence our behavior. Which skills and knowledge are necessary for achieving success? Knowledge is power, but it doesn't have to be what you learned in school. The workshop of the imagination, where we can turn our dreams into reality. Knowing your own strengths and weaknesses increases your chances of professional success. Positive emotions are the key to a successful life and need to be strengthened. What sort of approach do successful people take when realizing their goals? Successful people are remarkable for their determination and steadfastness. Only the persistent will succeed. Achieving great things requires being smart and surrounding yourself with smart people. The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. You could still be rich even if you weren't born with a silver spoon. Getting rich starts with the right attitude. Many of us tend to multiply excuses for why we can't be prosperous rather than look for ways to accumulate wealth. What is more, some people still believe that money is cursed and has the potential to corrupt a human soul. This harmful excuse leaves many struggling, unable to use the money to their benefit. In reality, money is the energy that fuels our daily activities and offers opportunities for self-realization and finding one's calling. But how do we rule over money and not let money rule over us? Nasir from Babylon might have already had all the correct answers 7,000 years ago. He was the wealthiest man then, and many people envied him because of his massive fortune. On a fateful day, while he plied the roads of Babylon in his caravan, he was halted by the shout of an old friend, Ravi. The man asked Nasir if he could recognize him. Nasir answered that he remembered the man's name. Ravi was, however, perplexed at how much his friend had evolved into a very wealthy person. There are many ways to scrape up a fortune through hard work and thinking ahead. He further inquired about the secret of Nasir's prosperity. Nasir explained that he was just obeying the laws of wealth. Although initially reluctant to reveal his secrets, Nasir eventually told them out of compassion for his dear friend. By the end of this summary, you will learn what 6 secrets make people rich. The value of these secrets is that they don't promise a miraculous and instant wealth accumulation, but offer a strategic plan to become rich. Get into the habit of putting some money aside. After their initial encounter, 2 old friends decided to sit down, drink wine, and delve deeper into the laws of wealth. Nasir started sharing his experience of how he gained financial wisdom. And so the story went. Nasir worked as a scribe in his younger years, carving words into clay tablets. No matter how hard he worked, he still found it hard to make ends meet. One day, he had a special client come by. His name was Arishaka. Everyone in the village knew him as a wealthy person. Nasir knew he could easily charge this rich guest double for this kind of work, but instead offered Arishaka to strike a bargain. He would carve everything requested by the following day. In return, Arishaka would tell him a secret about how he became rich. "You asked for my secret, and here it is. I found the way to wealth when I discovered that a part of all I earned was mine to keep." Having kept his end of the bargain, Nasir expected Arishaka to do the same. However, expecting a long and seasoned wisdom talk, the scribe was somewhat disappointed upon hearing a few words that barely made sense to him then. Arishaka said, "Keep a part of your earnings to yourself." Frustrated, Nasir defied this statement by claiming that everything he made with his hard work was his. Arishaka smiled and reminded Nasir that he pays for his groceries, lodgings, and services other people provide for him. What does he have in the end? Nothing. Saving at least 10% of your earnings is the first step to accumulating wealth. Thus, the first law of wealth is to save at least and never less than 10% of your income for yourself. Every time you get a chance to spend money on extra clothes or entertainment, think about if you really need it or if you would do just fine without that spending. With time, you might get used to the saving habit and start putting aside a more significant part of your income. Have your money tree grow by making investments. The first law steered Nasir in the right direction, but saving money was the beginning of a long journey to becoming wealthy. Gradually, Nasir introduced Ravi to the following essential lesson. According to the second law, one should put all savings to work by investing them wisely. The sooner you plant the seed, the sooner your tree will mature. And the more you feed and water the tree by saving and investing, the sooner you'll bask in contentment beneath its shade. As you invest your money, it tends to multiply. However, there are several things to consider before investing. Look out for businesses you're passionate about or possess some background knowledge about. For example, research retail investment opportunities if you're a fashion fan. An investor-to-be shouldn't consider questionable businesses they don't know much about or don't care about. Before you invest, make sure you understand how this industry works. Once, Nasir took a chance to invest in the jewelry business without prior knowledge. As expected, the stones he bought turned out to be fake. Nasir lost all the money he had managed to save. Still, it was a good investment lesson he never failed to follow from then on. Always do your research before you invest in it. Become an expert in that area, and that's how no one will be able to deceive you. Having saved a certain amount of money, choose to invest it rather than start spending it on the things you've always wanted to have but lacked the money for. Many of us would perceive losing money as something terrible, get disappointed, and return to ordinary life with no inspiration to invest ever again. However, on our way to getting rich, we should be prepared to experience failure and treat it as a natural thing. Money, just like everything else, is all about trial and error. Don't set your initial expectations too high. You can't gain the knowledge and experience required to get rich in one day. But failure is not the end of all our endeavors. It teaches us what works and doesn't, presenting a perfect opportunity to learn and move on. To be successful, pay off your debts and don't create new ones. The third law of wealth teaches us to steer away from debt. Debt allows the rich to earn interest while the poor become even poorer. After hearing Nasir's first two rules, Ravi decided to save 1/10 of his income. However, the fact that he had debts to pay was quite distressing. He didn't feel like he was getting richer while the debt was still hanging over his head. The creditors were banging on his door, demanding returns on everything plus interest. His good friend Nasir said soothing words of encouragement, reassuring him he had recommendations to handle his financial situation. You will experience a high degree of freedom when you have true wealth, but getting into debt is a sure way of wallowing in slavery. Following Nasir's words, Ravi made a conscious effort to avoid incurring more debt. His friend's wisdom reawakened him to the stress of borrowing money today to enjoy goods he can't evade paying interest for tomorrow. Ravi decided to cut off his extra spending so he wouldn't get deeper into debt. He worked out a system for paying off his debt. Rather than spending his entire monthly earnings on recurring needs such as shelter, food, clothing, and the like, he would keep no more than 7/10 of his income for that. He would follow the first law, saving to invest 1/10 of his income. So the residual 2/10 would be channeled towards settling his debts. Don't start investing unless you pay your debts off. Work out a realistic plan to settle them and stick to it. Ravi followed this plan judiciously and settled his debt at the end of the year, paying his creditors each month a small, consistent amount of money without fail. He earned himself a good name around Babylon. That's how Ravi's journey toward building his sustainable fortune began. Only when he was free of debt could he feel financially free. Did you know? The Richest Man in Babylon was originally a collection of educational pamphlets that U.S. banks and insurance companies circulated in 1920 to 1924. Diversify your investments and establish business partnerships. After 12 months of applying the first and second laws, Nasir began to seek new ways to invest his savings to gain fast returns. That wealthy man, Arishaka, was in the custody of his savings, but Nasir withdrew all of them. He decided to invest in jewels and buy them from the then-renowned Phoenicians. Arishaka, an experienced investor, had doubts about the deal Nasir wanted to engage in and wanted to ensure that the young man made an informed choice. However, Nasir was adamant. The investment proved futile, so Nasir incurred a significant loss. It happened because the cunning Phoenicians sold him fake gems. Commenting upon this bad ordeal, Arishaka declared that a business to invest in should be solid and established. It should be making a consistent profit and returning dividends to investors. If you're not confident about the industry you're investing in and how it works, find someone who can tell you more about it. For example, learning about the gold business. Find someone who deals with it consistently. Without experience working with gold as a product, you will have no practical knowledge of how the buying and selling gold industry works. Establish relationships with a reliable and trustworthy business partner who will introduce you to the business and provide all the necessary knowledge. Good communication skills are the key to establishing mutual ground with your future business partners. Arishaka further encouraged Nasir to invest, telling him not to bother over the loss of his entire savings. When Arishaka lost his savings early in his financial journey, he soon found a surefire way of replenishing his savings much faster than it took in the first instance. Everything comes with practice, and the more of it we have, the easier it becomes to attract wealth. Listening to the wise words of Arishaka and acting upon them, Nasir made a remarkable entry into the metal trade. He chose to work with the person he knew and invested in the business that proved solid. Not only did he end up purchasing more metal, but he also acquired knowledge, skills, and experience in the industry. This parable wraps up the fourth law of wealth, which urges us never to speculate in get-rich-quick schemes and invest in sustainable businesses that we understand. The end beneficiary of your investment is always yourself. Investment is a risky yet noble way to earn more money. However, many overlook that all your investments should benefit you and encourage your development. You don't simply invest in wealth, but in learning more about yourself and growing. The fifth law reminds you, the most important investment is you. Enrich yourself with the knowledge that will help you multiply your earning power. Be open-minded. Find interests and hobbies which might lead to a bigger expansion of your financial mindset. Never stop learning new skills and self-educating. Keep adding value to yourself. The story with fake jewels was indeed an eye-opener for Nasir. He learned never to put all his money into one place or give it to one person. Hence, he began diversifying his investments. As his fortune grew, he purchased reliable insurance to protect his possessions against catastrophes or robbery, and to secure an income for his family if his journey on the road of life was cut short. You can also learn from Babylon, which has stood firm despite the numerous attacks it has faced owing to the fortress-like walls surrounding the city. You can apply this to safeguard your increasing wealth. And that is what the sixth law of wealth is about. We should diversify and ensure our ever-growing wealth. Imagine yourself at the end point of your financial journey. You obeyed and practiced these laws successfully, finally becoming financially mature. At this point, you are wealthy, can relax, and have your money for yourself. Now, you can allow yourself the luxury treats you wanted from the start. If you wish for a new house, buy one. If you desire to travel around the world, do so. But you can only arrive at this point of wealth if you spend wisely from the beginning. But once you're financially secure, spending money is also important. Money, as energy, needs movement. It doesn't mean you'll have to spend everything you have earned with your hard and strategic work, but rather give yourself something you deserve. Conclusion. At the end of the day, after hearing Nasir out, Ravi became so inspired to share this newly acquired wisdom with everyone else. Ravi promised his friend that he would share this priceless knowledge with others so that people could understand the laws of wealth. Soon, he constructed an enormous wooden tablet with all these precious rules carved upon it. That's why we can learn and apply Babylon's timeless laws of wealth even today. Most importantly, this story shows us that anyone can become rich when they are determined and consistent about it. All it takes is to follow, step by step, the laws that regulate wealth accumulation. Start by saving at least 10% of your income for yourself. You can deposit it or keep it in your mattress, but always spare 1/10 of your monthly earnings. If you have saved enough, start investing in sustainable and reputable businesses that return dividends. Then make do with your debts. Never sign up for get-rich-quick schemes. Instead, invest in yourself and protect your fortune with diversification and insurance. Learning to become rich is hard work. It never happens overnight. To embark upon this exciting journey, you must be prepared to make mistakes and accept the consequences. Also, remember that risk is noble, but no one is impervious to failure. You can lose nearly all of your possessions at some point, but that doesn't mean you should stop trying. Try this. One way to start saving more is to revise your expenses. We believe we need many things to have comfortable and well-rounded lives, but do we? Here are several techniques to help you audit your budget seriously. Divide all your spending into categories. Update your earnings and expenses. All the numbers need to be on paper, not in your head. Eliminate all unnecessary spending. Come up with new financial goals. Think and Grow Rich teaches you the mindset, and The Richest Man in Babylon gives you the mechanics. But reading these books won't make you rich. Applying them will. The question is, are you ready to pay yourself first and take that first step today? Let me know in the comments which of these two principles you struggle with the most. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It truly means the world to me. I hope these two timeless books gave you the clarity and motivation you were looking for. If you got even one insight from this video, please hit the like button so it can reach more people. And if you're ready to take control of your finances, subscribe and join our little community. Wishing you massive success and abundance. See you in the next one.